Hello, welcome to HLA Live. HLA Live is our regular broadcast on the HLA YouTube channel as well as all the other social media channels. Each week we talk to interesting people from across the HLA community.
Good evening, everyone. I am really excited to be chairing tonight's meeting.
Hi, I'm Rosie Spooner and I'm hosting HLA Live this Wednesday.
And I'm an HLA scholar and I'm also going to be your host this evening.
To share with us their ideas and their innovations and hopefully bring them to a global audience.
Quite quick, we have ideas, let's do this, let's do that. So
many of the topics come from our community, with scholars and faculty expressing an interest in many of the discussions that we're about to have.
Hello everyone and welcome to the HLA Live session on widening participation in the postgraduate realm.
Homelessness and health.
Addiction and the new normal.
HLA programmes are built on 6 pillars. The leader is an innovator and entrepreneur. The leader is a communicator. The leader is a manager. The leader as a negotiator. The leader as a follower. And the leader as a philosopher. If you are interested in becoming a HLA scholar, why not get in contact? Many of the episodes in HLA Live will cover one or more of these important pillars. The HLA team consists of Pedra, Eamon, Tim, Riddy, Alistair, Adil and Trisha, and a range of other HLA scholars and faculty.
Just thinking about the stuff that we do, so there's some lectures around Black history happening, some of the grand rounds in the NHS Trust, they're Black themed. There's actually an event going on, I want to say next week, about different Black individuals locally and at different stages of their career. So there's going to be a medical student, an FY1 and a consultant speaking about like their journey through medicine and how they've sort of ended up in Dundee, and I guess just giving other Black individuals hints and tips on how to navigate the NHS and navigate being a doctor.
So I'm working for the Hull University Trust Hospitals, and Hull is a city that's quite steeped in Black history. So we have the William Wilberforce Museum here and quite a few Afro-Caribbean societies outside of the hospital which work and which function in the city. So there's been quite a lot of events being planned. So a lot of our museums have been highlighting elements of Black history. So for example, our prison service has been highlighting some of the ways in which Afro-Caribbean people have contributed to the police force. For example, the first Black British police woman is somebody who they're highlighting and doing showcases about. Our trust has placed a really great emphasis on the works happening around the city because there's quite a lot happening, and Museum Trust, so they've sent out lots of emails and lots of sort of bulletins about open museums and things that we could attend when we were available. A lot of these functions are free. A few of our medical staff, some of our senior medical staff, have been invited by our medical school in partnership with the university, so the Hull York Med School, to present lectures or discussions about Black History Month and what it means to be unique and separate and different, and an ethnic minority in a workforce like ours. What it takes, how we survive and how we build community in that. So there've been quite a few events, not all necessarily organised by my workplace or my workforce, but definitely championed by my workforce within the city of Hull.
So my workforce is my university as a medical student, and there's going to be a webinar with a conversation talking about race equality in the university and students who progressed work in the university and where they're up to now. I think it's quite interesting that it is a good time to talk about, race equality and kind of the initiatives, not just in Black History Month, but throughout the years and the years gone, and a good time to reflect on what's happened. But I think we often forget in terms of celebrating Black History Month is the word celebrating. And I think sometimes, we actually forget to really appreciate the contributions that particularly Black kind of professionals or students have done in the past, present and future. So I think although it is a great time to talk about diversity and policy, and you'll see many organisations use it as a time to launch their new EDI initiative or policies, you can launch that at any time of the year, and it's finding the balance of not being performative and just putting Black people on the pedestal, but actually this is a good time to recognise that as well.
As part of delivering the ambitions for the NHS People Plan and celebrating Black History Month, the National Equality, Diversity and Inclusion team are hosting Race Ahead, which is the NHS big conversations on race. You know, those conversations that people don't really like to have. So we thought we would do it. So our intention is to make this a key point for learning, engagement and discussion for the whole NHS workforce throughout October 21. So this will be a month in which the NHS workforce will engage in ever more courageous conversations about race, making progress to boost racially just outcomes and securing new commitments that will lead to better daily workplace experiences for BME staff. These commitments will stretch beyond the October conversation to embed practices over time that will lead to transformed and inclusive cultures. Race Ahead will, form part of a series of activities which will align with the Proud to Be theme for this year's Black History Month and create the essential conditions for belonging. Importantly, the activities during this month will support the implementation of the NHS People Plan, which encourages us all to make the NHS the best place to work. And we all want to see that, don't we? In planning this event, the underlying content design premise moved away from the traditional speaker presentation style and was centered on every conversation being, every session, should I say, being a conversation about race, which inadvertently role models the courageous conversations about race and gives permission for others to do the same. So that's the underlying premise of the whole series.
I'm self-employed, so I don't work within the NHS, but I do work with the NHS. And it's lovely to have a whole month to celebrate being Black, our history. But this month on Twitter, I have been celebrating, showcasing 31 individuals who've made a difference to me. They've influenced my thinking, my attitudes, my beliefs. So every day since the 1st of October, I've been showcasing an individual who has made an impact in my life and made me proud to be Black. And although it's great to have a whole month to celebrate, I am Black 365 all year round. So I hope it doesn't stop on October the 31st, because it's also what happens between November and September that we continue to be celebrated, and the difference we make, the impact we have, is showcased all year round. So that's what I'm hoping.
One of the other things is, so October is also Speak Up Month. Not only is it Black History Month, it's also Speak Up Month, which is synonymous really with Black History Month. We really do need to challenge ourselves to become an organisation whose culture means speaking up is easy and welcomed, and where it does not have to feel like it's a brave thing to do. Because as we know, many BME people find much repercussions to speaking up. So it's also an ideal opportunity to encourage all of us to complete the NHS staff survey. That is critical. If we don't know what's happening out there, can we do much about it? You know how much the NHS loves data. So let's use it to our benefit. So we each have a voice that counts. Let's encourage colleagues to engage in safe, open, and two-way dialogue. So we know that the pandemic highlighted that ethnic minority staff in particular are less likely to feel comfortable to speak up, which is another reason why both Speak Up Month and Race Ahead are so important.
I think what happened last year was actually really enlightening. It was a chance to really get a sense, a temperature check almost on where we all are at in our understanding of these difficulties in inequality, these difficulties in access, these difficulties in differential attainment, and just the view of everybody for Black people and Black lives. I think it's been enlightening to see some of the responses that came out, which equips us with how we respond or how we react, how we work, how we function. And I think one of the greatest things that's come from it is there's been so much more work into diversity training, diversity champions, research or data collection rather, into diversity in work. I mean, a big thing that I'm sure a lot of people will be speaking about is the most recent BMJ article about recruitment of Black and ethnic minorities. I think it focused on trusts in London, but how recruitment actually isn't the same. And we are over a year out from the fullness of the rioting and the fullness of the fury and the fullness of the impact, and yet still data doesn't reflect change. I think representation of culture has improved. I think, interestingly enough, individuals feel more empowered. And so there's something really beautiful about going into work and seeing people feeling more comfortable. And it's not something you can quantify. I can't put words or numbers or digits on it, but seeing colleagues who are not particularly religiously based or not for a religious reason, but wearing a headscarf because culturally that's something that we would do. And that's what they're just doing because actually, why not? And that seems really small and really tiny. But if you are Black and you are watching this, you know that we fight with our hair on a regular. And so it's amazing to see people feel empowered and equipped. I think the representations of history are variable across trusts. I don't think I can say that I've seen lots of it within my context. And I think that's just something that's a bit difficult to do. I think people have tried in sort of TV series and social media content to bring more of a spotlight on the Windrush generation and all of those Caribbean nurses and how they've been mistreated and how they were welcomed at first for actually what ended up being a really difficult time. It's difficult to spotlight these things because I think there's a lot of shame in spotlighting them, because to spotlight Black history means also to spotlight Black harm and Black trauma. And so honestly, I don't think we've seen a massive spotlight, but I have seen in and amongst my Black colleagues, people being more eager to form connections with each other, people being more eager to spend time together to talk about what we're struggling with, people being more ready and more willing to express the fullness of their culture, the fullness of their ethnicity, the fullness of their Blackness at work, feeling safe, feeling comfortable, and feeling, most importantly, supported in doing so.
So I would really love to say that we've moved on, beyond from decades of racism in the NHS. I'd really love to say that. But Black history and culture is thought about in the NHS by and large, but once per year during Black History Month. So such is the legacy of systemic racism, the impact of which prevents individuals from openly and confidently talking about race. And that's one of the other reasons that our premise for the whole of this Black History Month was about having a conversation, starting the conversation about race. And it's for everyone, not just for a small minority, not just for leaders, but for every level of the organization. So with that as a backdrop, it's no wonder that, representation of Black history is relegated to the bowels of the organization and not even gracing the history that is taught in our education systems. So interestingly, on Tuesday, we were honoured to have David Olusoga, who is a journalist, as a keynote speaker as part of a fireside conversation about race. And he talked about the need for the NHS to look at its own archives on migration and the NHS, and as one and the same story. One doesn't go without the other. And so in order to see its own failings in relation to normalizing the abnormal in racial injustices. So, and often this is one of the things that he said, is that we liberally use euphemisms like the snowy white peaks of the NHS instead of owning where we have failed to progress on racial equality. It's so much easier to say the snowy white peaks rather than to say we have failed on racial equality. So to address the root cause of racial inequality, organisations really need to take a deep and critical look at how they do what they do to intentionally transform practices in order to create equitable outcomes for all. Not for one, for all. The NHS is growing its identity as an organisation in which racists generally are a core part of everything that we do. Everyone who works on behalf of the NHS has a responsibility to act in ways that reduce inequality, and I mean everyone. So addressing racism, however, starts with the individual holding up the mirror to self, recognizing and reflecting on what they bring to the conversation about race and racism, and using this insight to inform and improve their practice. So there's a quote, I can't remember who the author is, but it says, "A lie doesn't become the truth. Wrong doesn't become right just because it is accepted by the majority." Let's not maintain the majority accepting a lie and a wrong.
Since the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020, there's definitely been an increased awakening and awareness for the need of representation in the NHS and in the community within that as well. And the ways in which this has always been known, but it's been spoken about a lot more, has been, for example, kind of leadership representation in those senior positions, whether that's in trust executives or the people making the decisions in different streams of the NHS as well. In terms of representation in Black history, the issue is that it's not spoken about enough. So yes, we are moving from Black History Month now, and you'll get a sort of snapshot of infographics on social media reminding you of different contributions, whether past, present, or the future, but actually it's not something which is instilled in from the very beginning, sort of thing. And I think that's why it is one of the issues of people do have issues with Black History Month, is that because you just only learn about it in just 1 month, and this was never spoken about before. And I think that's a shame, really, because there's been so many kind of breakthroughs and discoveries before the Black Lives Matter movement, and we don't recognise that consistently. And it's, I think for someone as a Black medical student myself, wanting to just work my way up to wherever I want to reach to, sort of seeing how that representation is lacking, it's quite concerning to see. In terms of culture within the NHS, just to briefly touch on that, I think a lot more needs to be done in terms of cultural competency, and a big part of that is bias and obviously the racism aspect, but also how do we connect and communicate well with other ethnic groups. And I think what's definitely been highlighted since last year is the whole aspect of allyship and working together and being active bystanders, But I think learning about each other's cultures will help to ultimately increase the positive nature in the NHS and what it should represent, which is diversity. I think we're on the way there, but there's so much more that needs to be done.
Well, I guess people talk about Windrush. I guess that's about the only thing that people say and when they think about Black NHS workers. And a lot of people talk about the racism that Black NHS workers experienced as well. Apart from that, I don't really think there is that much representation of Black history or Black culture. Just thinking about some of my friends who or some of my female friends who have bigger hair, or my friends who have locks, they can't really participate in surgery as easily because they don't have scrub caps that can fit their hair. So I don't know how much representation of Black history or culture is within the NHS. Throughout my time at medical school, I've been taught by 3 Black lecturers. Some of my friends at other universities have never been taught by any Black individual. So I don't think we're necessarily that represented in the NHS. Yeah, which is, I don't know what to say about that.
Thank you to everyone that made tonight's episode possible. Whenever our scholars are thinking about complex problems facing our health systems, we encourage them to think about how they make significant change in the world of healthcare. We are incredibly lucky to have some incredible scholars in the HLA. They use the HLA as a platform to take their ideas and bring them to fruition. If you are interested in the work of the HLA, why not join us at one of our future HLA events? Why not join one of our programmes? Why not even become a HLA scholar? Thank you for joining us. My name is Johan Marlwana, the director of the HLA, and it's a good night from all of us.